Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations, a series of short and shareable conversation starters for those of us who have or love and support people with a complicated and beautiful brain. Here's your host, Angela Geddes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kitchen Table Conversations, or should I say welcome back. It's been a few weeks now since we've run our last podcast. We took a little break over the summer, and I'm just reflecting on how quickly and precious time actually is, and realizing that it's been 3 years now since I first started this Kitchen Table Conversation podcast. And I can't believe that it's been running for that long already. And we have over 100 episodes. When I started this journey, my hope was fairly simple. It was to bring some meaningful conversations about life in general, but specifically around prenatal health, family well-being, and prevention into, our kitchen tables. Because I really do believe that that's where some of the most meaningful learning takes place. And I'm proud to say that's what's been happening. So I hear. It's funny because every time I get a little bit overwhelmed with all of the things that I want to be doing, I consider whether or not the podcast is something that I should be doing. But it never fails that as soon as I'm thinking about taking a pause or maybe not doing it anymore, somebody tells me that it really hit home. So here we are, 3 years later and still going. And again, lots of really good conversations and information has been shared, but it has been 3 years. And I guess I'm still a little bit surprised that after all this time, I continue to have conversations, even in unexpected places like the hair salon or the grocery store or over a coffee with some friends I haven't seen for a while, that really reveal very clearly how misunderstood prenatal health still is, particularly when it comes to alcohol use and fetal alcohol spectrum disorder in particular, and some of the mental health challenges that are directly linked to prenatal exposures, prenatal alcohol and substance exposures. September 9th is International FASD Awareness Day, which is why I chose that day as the launch of this podcast 3 years ago. It is a day that's set aside to pause and reflect and commit to protecting developing brains and supporting bodies and supporting individuals and families who are living with the impact of prenatal alcohol exposure. And sometimes it does result in fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And this year, I want to share that while I haven't been doing the podcasts as much, it's been a big year for us. And I'm hoping that you can be a part of what we're doing and some of this movement. And let's start with the why of what it is that gets me up most mornings and gets me committed or keeps me committed to doing this work. I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again. FASD is more common than autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and Tourette syndrome combined. Yet globally, fewer than 2% of the people with FASD who should have a diagnosis actually have access to an assessment. So without this diagnostic clarity and without the awareness, most or all are misdiagnosed with conditions that resemble or are actually found to be ADHD, anxiety, OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, oppositional defiance disorder, personality disorders, autism spectrum disorder, and other learning disabilities and other complexities. But this leaves families feeling very unsupported and lots of times individuals feeling very misunderstood. Prevention is possible. And this does start all the time, long before pregnancy. And this isn't often a consideration, and it still kind of surprises people to understand that those early weeks really matter. But the fact is, we now know that there is no safe time, type, or amount of alcohol during the pregnancy, and that the preconception period matters as well. So both parents' health, including father's alcohol use, can shape the outcomes for a child. And as my son once said years ago, we're building a baby. Why take any chances at all by putting anything in our body that won't optimize the health and well-being of the little person that's growing inside? So what have we been doing about it? I think that, looking across the globe, there's tons of things that people are doing to help raise awareness around fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. But I maintain that our approaches have to be somewhat different because current prevention messaging is not working. In fact, drinking during pregnancies are on the rise. And I know that's going to come to a surprise to most people, but there's a variety of things that are going on in this world, including research fatigue, mixed up messaging. There's continual mixed messaging being offered from our medical community, from the media. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but in the last decade, drinking during pregnancy has increased by confirmed cases from 1 in 13 to now 1 in 10 to 1 in 7. So we're not really addressing this issue the way obviously people need to hear it. So what are we doing about it? We're doing a few things. So we did release second editions of both A Complicated and Beautiful Brain and Not Your Typical Parenting Guide this summer. And we've translated both of those books in French. And the reason why I love A Complicated and Beautiful Brain is because it talks about the impacts of prenatal alcohol and substance exposures across the lifespan. And I've had feedback from people who were late diagnosed in their 30s or in their 50s who've read these books and have said that they found themselves within these pages. So recognizing that these books are written with the understanding that people who have been impacted directly by prenatal exposures will read them. And so safety, dignity, comfort, casual, easy read, but an important, filled with information and evidence and QR codes linked to more research articles that back up everything that's said in there. And we've just published my third book, which is called Not Your Typical Teaching Guide. And that aims to help everyone in the education system support students in a different way, some of whom will be affected by alcohol. But this book is not written specifically, nor is the Not Your Typical Parenting Guide specifically for fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. It's written for complex neurodevelopmental conditions, including intense symptoms of ADHD, autism, learning disabilities, and other cerebral palsies, Down syndrome, that kind of thing. So these strategies are a little bit more universal and inclusive of the developmental disabilities and the complexities that are seen within, and lots and lots of overlapping characteristics between a number of mental health conditions and some of these developmental brain-based conditions. So we've also added to the work provided by Heidi Murkoff's What to Expect Before You're Expecting to include an insert for the books that I provide some families with more clear evidence-based information, and an insert that's put right into the book on preconception health. So on page 18 of the book, it talks about there not being any clear rules around drinking or alcohol consumption during the trying to conceive stage. But I have clarified that with less permissive language and facts around what we now know, that again, prenatal health and preconception health from both parents matters. Alcohol use from both parents matters from the time of conception and even preconception onward. And that information needs to be shared very clearly so that people have the opportunity to make really informed decisions. So we've created pregnancy preparation packages, which are beautiful practical reminders that celebrate the pregnancies or the pending pregnancies and how we can prepare for those and consider alcohol-free options and what we can eat and drink to promote the healthiest of babies. So we're pretty pleased with that. They've already been at a couple of wedding celebrations or stag and does and showers and things like that. And the feedback has been excellent, and it's generated some really neat conversations that have, in fact, went back to kitchen tables, which is pretty awesome. So we've also produced some new updated PSAs, so public service announcements for radio and to be shared on socials. And I have my husband, Jamie Warren, to thank for that, who narrated them, and his producer, Rick Hutt, and a good friend of ours who did that. And many, many, many thanks to Joe Wood, who is in charge of getting these PSAs out to radio. And all of them have done that for me. Just because they believe in this cause as well. So we're pretty pleased about those as well. We did update them again to be more inclusive of not just FASD. FASD could happen, prenatal alcohol exposure, but it doesn't always happen, and it's certainly not always diagnosed. But things like ADHD and other symptoms of impulsivity and problem solving and some school difficulties and some social problems, relationship instability, financial, and keeping a job can sometimes be a little bit harder despite real dedication and hard work. So these kinds of conversations need to happen as well, and people need to realize that there is a direct link between prenatal alcohol exposure and some of the common mental health conditions that we see. So we also created a song a while back with some young adults who have complex neurodevelopmental conditions, honoring their experiences, their voices, and their resilience, which we're pretty proud of, and it's available on YouTube. It's called A Dusty Road to Home. We've highlighted it before, but we encourage everyone to have another listen. And we've expanded some of our partnerships and our services to include functional social work assessments and multidisciplinary team assessments, working with other medical providers to ensure that families have fewer wrong doors when they reach out for help. We're doing more community-based stuff to help more young adults access the services that they are eligible for, and to help people to reach their potential in a really compassionate and informed way. We've also produced some new merchandise that include coasters with prevention messaging, some napkins, some placemats that restaurants are interested in displaying in their establishments for the month of September to increase awareness. And again, these changes and these opportunities involve creativity, collaboration, and a lot of community commitment. And we're really honored to partner with so many who have similar values and ideas. So that being said, I want to invite you, wherever you are listening, to take some action this month. I ask you to share our public service announcements. We've got some neat videos that are shareable on YouTube, so please feel free. Talk to somebody, bring it back to your kitchen table around why preconception and pregnancy health really, really matters, and how it has lifelong impacts on our little ones and our children and our communities. And it really is up to all of us to support healthy pregnancies. And then consider joining us locally in St. Thomas, Ontario at City Hall at 9 a.m., where we stand together for awareness, prevention, and more inclusive support. Or seek out whatever's happening on September 9th or for the month of September in your communities. I always suggest that, link to your local, your regional, your provincial, your national FASD networks. There's a ton of things going on. And the more people talk about this, the more we all can do to reduce both the incidences of prenatal alcohol exposure and the impact of prenatal alcohol exposure. So let's make sure that we do what we can so that fewer children grow up to be misunderstood and fewer families face some of these challenges that, with the right information and the right support, can be prevented. With many thanks, Angela.